When Hoda Kotb speaks on television, there's a quality to her that is genuinely difficult to manufacture. Unlike some broadcasters who have perfected the performance of emotion, Hoda has always been the kind of anchor who seems to be actually feeling whatever she is describing. On February 6, 2026, that quality was on full display. Hoda began by telling the audience, "This whole thing is breaking my heart, and I'm happy to be sitting here with you." She then went on to speak about the outpouring of national support that had been gathering around the Guthrie family vigils, messages from fellow journalists on other networks, prayers from ordinary viewers across the country. But the moment that people would talk about for weeks came when Hoda explained simply and directly why she was back. She reflected on how Savannah had always shown up for the people she loved, asking aloud who was first in the hospital room when Hope was sick. Savannah. Who hopped on a plane when Carson's parents died? Savannah. Who was sitting by Joel's late husband and Craig's brother when he passed? Savannah was there. She was not recounting these things to perform gratitude. She was explaining a ledger of love that she felt obligated to balance. Hoda also shared a message of collective hope. There's been a massive show of support from vigils to people offering positive thoughts online, and just a lot of hope. The nation's rallying around our dear friend Savannah and her family, believing their beloved mom, Nancy, will be back soon in their loving arms. It was a careful, considered thing to say, full of warmth but not reckless optimism. She was walking a tightrope between keeping hope alive and acknowledging the gravity of what was happening in Arizona. Hoda also told viewers about what she had experienced outside the studio. "I was walking through the airport yesterday, flying back here. The number of people who came up and said one thing they kept repeating, 'She's like all of our moms. She's like all of our moms. Tell her we're praying. Tell her we're here.' And I think that's so important. It's touched everybody." Those words, "she's like all of our moms," captured exactly why the story had spread so far beyond the usual audience of morning television. Nancy Guthrie was not famous. She was not a celebrity. She was an 84-year-old woman of deep faith, quiet strength, and fierce independence, who raised 3 remarkable children largely on her own after losing her husband at a devastating age, and people recognized her. They saw their own mothers in her. The yellow ribbons? One of the most quietly powerful things that happened during this period was something that Hoda helped set into motion through the simplest of gestures. The Today Show team began wearing yellow ribbons. Co-hosts Kotb, Melvin, Carson Daly, and Al Roker all wore yellow ribbons, adopting the practice of Nancy's neighbors in her Catalina Foothills neighborhood. The entire Today studio wore yellow ribbons throughout the week in Nancy's honor. Yellow is the color of waiting. It is the color of hope held carefully in the hands when certainty is nowhere to be found. For generations, yellow ribbons have meant one specific thing in American culture. Someone is not home yet, and we have not stopped waiting for them. By bringing that symbol into Studio 1A, the Today team was doing something more than a tribute. They were making a statement that the search for Nancy Guthrie was not yesterday's story. It was today's story, and it would be tomorrow's story for as long as it needed to be. The move resonated far beyond the studio. Viewers sent in photographs from their own front yards. Yellow ribbons tied around trees, yellow flowers placed on porches, yellow fabric fastened to neighborhood gates. In Tucson itself, the symbol traveled across social media, carried by people who had never met Nancy Guthrie or Savannah Guthrie, but who felt connected to the story in the way that only genuinely human stories can connect strangers. The Today Show's platform became, for those weeks, something more than a morning broadcast. It became a kind of national gathering place for hope. None of that happened by accident. It happened because someone with the wisdom and experience to understand the power of a symbol made a decision to use it. That someone was Hoda. The friendship. There is a version of this story that is entirely about television, about ratings, about network logistics, about who fills an anchor chair when a co-host is unavailable. That version of the story is not wrong, exactly, but it is incomplete in every way that matters. The true story is about the unglamorous, demanding daily work of being someone's real friend. Hoda and Savannah Guthrie became co-anchors in 2018, making history as the first all-female team to lead the Today Show. But their bond predated the titles and the milestone headlines. They were two reporters who had worked their way up through a competitive industry, sharing the small indignities and large victories of careers that require relentless persistence. They had sat in those anchor chairs through elections, disasters, personal losses, and national celebrations. They had talked on live television about their children, their faith, their fears. They had built something genuinely rare in any industry, let alone one as competitive as broadcast news, a friendship that was stronger than the professional relationship it grew from. Kotb said of the show's culture during this time, "Paramount through all of this, Savannah and her family are our top priority. In addition to that, there is also a job to do." That sentence, seemingly simple, almost matter-of-fact, actually contains something profound. She did not say that the job was the priority. She did not say that the network's needs came first. She placed Savannah and her family at the top, and then acknowledged that there was also work to be done. The order of those two things was not accidental. As Hoda put it plainly on her return, "We are a family. I'm part of the family. I'm happy to be with you because we show up for each other." In a media landscape that sometimes uses the word family as a branding exercise, those words were being tested in real time against a real crisis. And they were holding what 61 looks like. There is something worth pausing on about the specific number in this story. 61. When Hoda Kotb left the Today Show, she did so at 60, describing her milestone birthday as a kind of clarifying moment, a shift in the light that helped her see what she actually wanted from the years ahead. She described her 60 years as a broadcast journalist as meaningful, and then she described the next chapter as something she was ready to fully inhabit. The most shocking on-set conflict involved a different co-star entirely. During the first 2 years of Gunsmoke, James Arness and Milburn Stone, who played Doc Adams, genuinely despised each other. Stone, a seasoned performer, found himself irritated by Arness's behavior during rehearsals. Arness had a habit of whistling and making silly noises, which drove Stone crazy. Stone later admitted, "He used to annoy me because, at rehearsals, he'd sit there and whistle or make all kinds of silly noises. So one time I started in on him, really screaming and yelling. The confrontation was intense. But instead of fighting back, Arness told his co-star he was right, and decided it was better to move on. That moment changed everything. The tension faded. Over time, Stone grew to respect Arness, not just as the star, but as a colleague. Years later, Stone admitted his opinion had changed completely. He said, "I spent the first 2 years on Gunsmoke despising Jim's lack of professionalism. Now I say his acting has reached classical proportions." What began as irritation eventually transformed into friendship. Personality clash with Amanda Blake. Beyond the conflict with Stone, James Arness and Amanda Blake also had their differences. Arness was quiet and private. He preferred spending time alone in his dressing room rather than socializing. He took his work seriously and kept a clear line between his personal life and the set. Blake was the opposite. She was outgoing and enjoyed being around people. She often talked with the cast and crew between takes, believing that building off-camera relationships could improve on-screen performances. Her energy made her popular with many. These opposite styles led to small but noticeable issues. Blake might try to lighten the mood during breaks, while Arness might not respond. He wasn't trying to be unfriendly. He simply preferred quiet. But over time, these small differences built into ongoing tension. They worked together because they had to, not because they shared the same approach. Despite this, Arness later considered Blake a great friend and regularly praised her casting. Their relationship, while complicated, was built on mutual respect for the work. Fame, power, and resentment. As Gunsmoke grew in popularity, Amanda Blake's role expanded. Writers gave her more screen time, stronger dialogue, and deeper storylines. Fans connected strongly with Miss Kitty. She was independent and confident. For many viewers, especially women, she became one of the most admired characters on the show. Blake was featured more often in interviews and magazine articles. This shift created tension. Arness was still the central figure as Matt Dillon, but he was no longer the only focus. In long-running shows, changes in audience attention can affect how actors feel about their roles. When a supporting character gains equal or greater recognition, it can shift the balance within the cast. Pain and breaking point. By the late 1960s, the work had become extremely demanding. Gunsmoke produced up to 40 episodes a year, long days, tight schedules, little rest. For Arness, it was even harder. His old war injuries grew worse. His knees, feet, and legs constantly troubled him. What looked like tiredness or a bad mood was often physical suffering. By the mid-1970s, after nearly 2 decades, Amanda Blake made the decision to leave. She had spent 19 of 20 seasons as Miss Kitty. Her departure was not due to disputes with Arness. According to the Chicago Tribune, Blake had grown weary of traveling from her Phoenix home to the Hollywood set. She told the Los Angeles Times, "I was tired, and it was time to leave. It was the end of the trail for me." Blake also struggled with declining health, later revealed to be throat cancer. The death of her friend and co-star Glenn Strange from lung cancer in 1973 made it difficult for her to cope. When Gunsmoke returned for its 20th season, viewers were told Miss Kitty had moved to New Orleans. Fran Ryan replaced her but starred in only 5 episodes. A year after Blake's exit, CBS canceled the show without public announcement or prior notice to the cast. The bombshell. For decades, fans believed the on-set tensions were exaggerated, but recent research and newly surfaced interviews have confirmed what insiders always knew. James Arness did call one co-star truly evil, and that co-star was neither Amanda Blake nor Milburn Stone. The truly evil label was reserved for a guest star who caused havoc during the show's later seasons. According to production reports from 1973, an actor brought in for a 3-episode arc refused to follow director's cues, openly mocked the regular cast members, and deliberately upstaged Arness in multiple scenes. When confronted, the guest star reportedly laughed and said, "This is just a TV Western, who's really watching?" Arness, known for his patience, finally lost his temper. After the guest star deliberately knocked over a prop during a crucial courtroom scene, forcing an expensive reshoot, Arness pulled the producer aside and said, "Get him off my set. He's truly evil." The guest star was replaced after only 2 episodes. That guest star's identity remained a secret for decades. But now, thanks to recently leaked production notes from the CBS archives, we know exactly who it was. Character actor Morgan Woodward, who appeared in season 18 as a corrupt railroad baron. Woodward, who passed away in 2019, never publicly addressed the incident, but crew members later confirmed that Arness refused to work with him again. Woodward had a long career, appearing in The Cool Hand, Luke, and Star Trek, but his behavior on the Gunsmoke set earned him a reputation that followed him for years. Multiple crew members from that season have since come forward, corroborating the story. One assistant director recalled, "Jim was the most patient man I ever worked with. If he said someone was evil, you knew it was bad." The legacy? While the partnership between Arness and Blake had its challenges, the world they created together carried on for fans old and new. Gunsmoke remains the longest-running primetime drama in television history. 20 seasons, 635 episodes. Arness played Matt Dillon for 2 decades, never missing a single episode. The truly evil co-star story has finally been solved. Morgan Woodward's behavior on set was so unprofessional that it pushed the gentlest giant in Hollywood to his breaking point. And now, 50 years later, the truth has come out. If you found this peek behind the scenes fascinating, hit that like button and join us as we dive even deeper into Hollywood's most iconic TV dramas. That takes a particular kind of self-awareness. A lot of people in Hoda's position, with Hoda's platform and following and professional standing, would have held on to the desk simply because it is very difficult to let go of something that has defined you for so long. She did not hold on. She chose. And then, at 61, she made another choice, not to undo the first one, but to honor something that in her view mattered more in that specific moment than her carefully built new routine. Retirement in the American cultural imagination is often framed as a permanent state, a door you close and do not reopen. Hoda's return challenged that framing. Hoda Kotb extended her return to co-anchor today alongside Craig Melvin, committing to a fourth week in the role. She did not come back for one morning, or 1 week, or as a favor to the network. She came back and stayed because the situation required it, and because she is someone who stays when situations require it. This is what 61 looks like when it is lived with intention and love. It does not look like a fixed plan, executed without interruption. It looks like a woman who knows herself well enough to walk away from something when the time is right, and who knows herself even better when the moment comes to walk back towards something, because that is what the people she loves need from her. The ongoing search. As the search for Nancy Guthrie entered its 5th week with no resolution, Savannah said in a video that her family still believed in a miracle, and that they were blowing on the embers of hope. The phrase is almost unbearably poignant, the image of someone crouched over a dying fire, breath held, willing a flame to catch. It is the kind of language that comes from a person who is doing everything she can to keep going. And across the country, from a studio in New York, Hoda Kotb was doing the same thing in the only way available to her. She was showing up every single morning and refusing to let the story go cold. By the end of February 2026, the Pima County Sheriff's Department had expanded their search into remote desert areas surrounding Tucson. The FBI had brought in behavioral analysts. The reward fund had grown to $1 million. And every morning, Hoda Kotb sat in Savannah's chair, keeping the seat warm for a friend who was living every daughter's worst nightmare. The final word. At the end of all this, what Hoda Kotb showed the world in February 2026 was not a television performance. It was not a public relations strategy. It was not even particularly planned. It was the honest expression of a woman who, at 61, has arrived at a clarity about what actually matters, and who is unwilling to let anything not retirement, not personal plans, not a carefully arranged new life stand between her and the people she loves when they need her. She left a show that defined her for nearly 3 decades because she was ready to be more fully present for her daughters. She came back to that same show because she needed to be more fully present for her friend. Both of those decisions, seemingly contradictory on their surface, are actually powered by the exact same engine, a woman who knows what she values and who has the courage to act on that knowledge, even when acting on it requires her to change course, to sacrifice, and to show up in ways that no one could have predicted. Hoda Kotb finally spoke up about Savannah Guthrie, and what she said was not complicated. She said, "I am here. I am staying. You are not alone." And that, more than any broadcast, more than any interview, more than any headline, is what friendship looks like when it is real.